marrying strength to flexibility, if you try to get flexible, there's four kinds of flexibility, really. There's dynamic passive, dynamic active, which is moving. There's dynamic and static, okay? Which is the joint is either moving, like this is dynamic kind of flexibility, or there's static, which is like this. Okay, the joint's not moving, shoulder joint's not moving. There's also passive and active. So you get dynamic passive, which would be like that. Then there's dynamic active. So I'm kind of actively trying to move the limb rather than just letting it, right? And then there's static active, which would be statically holding it. And then like a static passive would be like if I could prop my arm up on, an object, and then that would just kind of hold it there, right? So static passive would be like someone sitting on the floor in their splits, totally flat, asleep, okay? So strength being married to flexibility allows you to have that active component to dynamic and static stretching. So when you marry strength to flexibility, now you're increasing the motor control at a neurological level. Again, you're increasing the motor control over the tissues, over the muscle, and to some extent tendon, ligament, right? Although you might not consciously be trying to control those things, those fibers, you are gaining, control and strength in so okay. Neurologically, more control, and with flexibility, most of what you're talking about when you marry strength to flexibility is actually like, flexibility is limited by your nervous system. So when you get into a stretch, what you're actually dealing with is a weakness. So if you go into a hamstring stretch, right? If I prop my leg up here, if you can even see that, right? So I stretch my hamstring, okay? You feel that hamstring stretch. That is the Golgi tendon organ sitting on the muscle, sends the nervous impulse from the muscle to the brain that says, hey, we're moving a lot further than we normally do, and this is uncomfortable. We're not familiar with this. How do we do this? The brain says, and then everything just stiffens up. So in layman's terms, that's what happens. So when you initiate a contraction, the brain is responding and saying, let's try to gain some control. Let's try to see what we can do. So then you push down, you push down with your leg in the hamstring, you contract the hamstring, and then that teaches the hamstring to contract in that lengthened position. And then you can also try to lift the leg and contract the hip flexor or your quads, try to straighten out the leg. You can point and flex the foot. So you see what I'm saying? You can either send the nervous impulse to push down against the stretch in the lengthened tissue, which will strengthen that lengthened tissue, or you can try to actively pull or contract the shortened muscle on the opposite side that's not being stretched. That's called the antagonist. The stretched muscle is called the agonist because it's in agony. It's the one doing the work. So agonist, antagonist. So a stretch is fundamentally a weakness. And at a neurological level, if you can start marrying strength to flexibility, you're going to be increasing the neurological control over the muscles in that position, which means that you can use it in sport. So if you start stretching your hamstring that way and you strengthen the hamstrings and the hip flexors, and then you go run a 40-yard dash, after a few months of training, you'll find that you can actually lift your leg when you get on a backswing in your sprint, when your leg's behind you in extension, you'll actually have the strength in the hip flexor in that lengthened position that you can lift it and pull the knee forward from that lengthened position a lot faster and a lot stronger. And then you can also push down against the ground with your heel when you're in that long stride, right? Your heel, if you will, can kind of pull the ground underneath you in that lengthened position. So you kind of have a faster stride or sprint time. You might notice this. I didn't do any sprinting, and I had like a 4.940, just doing some squats and splits and stuff. The squats definitely played a role, but there you go. So marrying strength flexibility neurologically increases the control over the muscles. So if you just wanted to get the splits, one problem there is that if you wanted to improve your squat or your splits or something, you get to the bottom of your squat or the bottom of your splits, you don't have any strength, you don't have any neurological control, now you're just stuck. Like imagine zero neurological control at the bottom of a squat. You're stuck, you're screwed, you can't get up, okay? So you want to have neurological control so that you can get into the position that your stretch and get out of it. That's what creates a movement. So if you want to have a movement and you want to increase the range of the movement, you need neurological control. The other part of marrying strength and flexibility is that you want to have muscle mass. I mean, when you start loading a stretch like that, you start doing contractions, start off light and then progressively, you know, so the continuum there is, it's a continuum where you're supported by the floor, by something, and then you start holding your own body weight up, and then you start holding objects or adding weight. So you start loading your stretches, right? What that does muscularly is it's going to obviously strength train, hypertrophy the muscle. So what happens when you strength train? Your muscle gets bigger, it gets stronger. So you're also going to be thickening the tendons and the ligaments, which in that lengthened position, the tendons and ligaments are, you know, and the straighter the joint is, like if you hang, okay, the straighter my elbow is, the more of the load is going to fall in the middle. So here's my shoulder, here's my wrist, here's kind of the fulcrum and the anchor point. So as my arm straightens, it gets longer, more of the weight ends up here in the middle. So in a split, you want to have that thick tendon and ligament, you know, around the knee to keep the knee healthy and safe. So thickening of connective tissues, thickening of the muscles in that position, specifically training the muscle fibers in that lengthened position, getting those motor units active and turning on those muscle fibers that have been dormant for a while. So yeah, marrying strength and flexibility has a neurological and physiological, you know, muscular component. Marrying flexibility to strength also has those neurological and physiological benefits. So all this to say, after, oh good lord, 17 minutes, maybe I'll split this up or do a teaser. I might make a teaser for this and then see, like, do you want the full length version of this? I don't know. But all this to say, we want to marry strength to flexibility. And the reason that we want to do this is because I think that if you want to move well, meaning smoothly, gracefully, strong, confidently, you know, efficiently, quickly, okay, at varying speeds, whatever, you want to have the neural system to work with it, the muscular system, the body to work with it, and you want to have the range to do the movement in. You want to have the health of the joint, the connective tissues as well. So, personally, I've done it. I've seen it work. I think it's a great idea, and I think that it's accomplishable. This is a realistic way to train for most people. I think you can do it in under, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours a week. It's very time efficient to do this, especially, you know, and if your goal is to perform giant feats of strength, then you probably you're going to need more training, obviously, because you're going to put flexibility on top of the strength training load of a lot of professional athletes. So, but yeah, I mean, it varies person to person. So the main thing is just to start doing it. So start adding more strength and flexibility into your workouts. If you're doing a lot of stretching or yoga, start adding more strength. If you're doing a lot of strength training, start adding more stretches, or start doing strength movements through more range of motion. Try to get that stretch in there, and it feels great. It's the biggest thing. Kit Laughlin from Stretch Therapy always says this about stretching. The best reason to do it, the easiest way to market it, it just feels good. It's just great. It feels wonderful, especially if you do it well. And strength training, I think personally, I think that it makes you look better and you're more confident, happy, and you feel more vibrant. So why not? Putting the two together is just like, I don't know, nature's harmony. It's a match made in heaven. So that's what I got to say. Hopefully that wasn't too much, and you probably learned a lot. So I guess thank you for listening, and I will continue talking to the camera.